Welcome to the Heaven on Earth podcast, a world where you study the story you were born into and redesign it into the story you choose. A world where you can have heaven on earth right here, right now, no matter the past. For me, heaven on earth is a holistic experience, leading with the heart, engaging with mind, body, and spirit. It's mindful, fostering calm and secure attachments. As we rise into consciousness, it's an earthly journey where we sensually embrace dynamic living.
There are moments when codependency becomes physically debilitating. It stops feeling like a relationship pattern, and it literally feels like my whole body is going through a full body emergency. No joke. Your mind starts to swirl with judgments, with self-judgments, with outer blame, with inner blame, chaotic courtroom, basic heart racing, all the while you know that what's happening is disproportionate to the outside trigger. And your nervous system is feeling like it's all up to you. The fate of the entire world, the fate of your own personal world is in your hands. Literally, it feels like life or death. It feels all encompassing. This episode comes from one of those moments. Hi, I'm Claudia Cauterucci, and I am the Heaven on Earth podcast host. I'm a psychotherapist based in Washington, D.C. Been doing this for over 25 years. I'm a holistic health counselor, an author, and the founder of the Dynamic Re-Evolution curriculum. In this podcast, we cover all sorts of themes around healing and evolution. It is not a religious podcast, but it is a podcast where we explore how spirituality interconnects with this reality that we're living right. So this week a family situation lit up. And remember last week I talked about the sleeping volcano? Well, thank you relationships, because relationships are your quickest trigger to the sleeping volcano. And we say thank you triggers because this episode is all about thank you triggers, because it exposes pockets inside of us that still are unhealed, no matter if I've been on the healing journey for all these years. So the trigger on the outside looked like something normal, a day-to-day discussion that for me turned into a full halt, a full stop, screeching brakes, catastrophe in front of me. It really felt like I could feel my whole system get hijacked in real time. I alternate between freezing and wanting to move into action. And then there's this overpowering desperation. And I am not dramatizing here because I know there's many of you who know what I'm feeling. And yes, it's a combination panic attack, trigger, but it's this wave of codependency. And I know that it is because the urge, the impulse to speak, to fix, to save, to prevent, to stop what's happening just takes over. It is really interesting that I talked about volume 2 because we all need the triggers that wake us up to see where all of our stuff is. The feeling is this overwhelm with urgency. I felt like the pressure to make a case, to pull out the PowerPoint, to defend my points. It feels like I need to organize all of my logic, all of my evidence. And believe it or not, for so many years, I haven't had migraines. I could feel a migraine coming on. And by the way, one of the ways that I started to work with the migraine was to try and remember the first time I ever had a migraine, which was when I was, I think, 12 years old. And I went back to track what was happening in my life back then. And it was all about codependency and feeling over responsible at 12. So I kept trying to hold this reality together frantically. This urge to defend what did not feel fair. This attempt to stop what felt like a really dangerous double standard that had the trajectory of turning something painful into something irreversible. Mark my words with this, because underneath all of this was the same sensation, terrifying sensation I felt at different points in my life, most of my life. And the sensation is everything depends on me. If I don't act, something terrible will happen. And that's the center of the storm of this trauma reaction, panic, codependency surge, because what codependence activates, which feels like love, but it's actually RESCUE. RESCUE. Anyway, I digress. Rescue. So not moving into action or staying still and silent feels like I am contributing to something that could destroy us. So let's name the trauma, because the trigger activated a deep-seated trauma. Remember, thank you, triggers, because it leads to these trauma fault lines that, if you do the work, leads to the gold mines. That's a cloudism. Thank you, triggers, okay? T-shirt. So I want to name it because naming is a meditation. It's gaslighting trauma. And gaslighting trauma isn't just about someone lying. Gaslighting trauma is about erasing the self. It's about being trained over and over and over to not trust your instinct, to question your internal reality, to minimize what you are seeing. You're being asked to no big deal it. You're asked to not speak to what's happening inside of you, which is likely very true, in order to maintain connection. Remember that whole sneaky abandonment wound thing, or you're too much thing, which is also part of the gaslighting trauma. If you speak this truth, you're too much. You're tripping. So you have to maintain peace. You have to maintain harmony in order for everything to survive. So in gaslighting, what starts to happen is you get, of course, because your body knows, your higher consciousness knows, that you have to prove reality. You put on your little lawyer hat on because you start to gather evidence. You get repetitive because you're repeating your points over and over and over, which also gets dismissed. Oh, you're so repetitive. You start to anticipate, right? You brace for rebuttals. You keep wanting to present the logic, in hopes that the other person finally understands. And there's this desperation. Please listen. Please validate my internal experience. If I can write a thesis, if I can explain this, hopefully you'll get it, right? Now, I want to underscore that this is what it feels like to be with someone who's narcissistic, has narcissistic tendencies, selfish, clueless, dismissive avoidant, or they might be a beautiful, good person who's gaslighting themselves, who's lying to themselves for whatever reason. And usually it's because they want what they want. So they'll just gaslight themselves and therefore gaslight those around them so that they can get what they want. And sometimes these are really good-hearted. And so a swirl begins of double standards, which also, right, there's nothing more desperate urge-inducing than seeing people's double standards, especially in your home, your partner, your friends, your parents, when you start to see the subtitles, the double standards, the hypocrisy. They're so triggering and activating because they carry a certain energetic signature, and it's one of confusion. Like, wait a minute, you say this, but you're doing this. You scream at me for this. You fight me. You hold this standard with me. But you're over here doing this, and part of the signature is that it feels unfair, unstable, and wow, does it pull the safety rug from under you? That's the most important part, is how safety is literally, it's not just vanishing, it's pulled from under you when you start to see this. And think of being a child when you start to see all this stuff. And children are seeing things clearly, but all the gaslighting is going on in so many ways. Anyway, let me keep going. So if your nervous system has been shaped by early inconsistency, unfairness isn't annoying or irritating. It's actually dangerous because you can't predict the outcomes. You can't track the safety. You can't rest from that moment on. Think of when your partner says, oh, I have lunch with that person every day, but they're married and I'm married and we're good. All we're doing is going out for lunch every day, right? It starts to feel dangerous. Or when your dad yells at you, respect your mother, but you could see how he's constantly criticizing her. This stuff is dangerous. And this is where codependency enters the room, my loves. Codependency is a coping mechanism from gaslighting trauma. Codependence gets labeled as neediness, over-attachment, maybe being overly emotional, controlling for sure. You could start to want to control things. Of course, things are feeling out of control. They're feeling dangerous. So you start to control, fix, manage, run after. Can you feel the desperation? And what it actually is a learned vigilance. It's a learned hyper responsibility. Hence the migraines, heartburn, all sorts of stuff comes with codependency. It's a learned monitoring, right? You're always looking for signs. And signs so that you could use them as proof, as evidence. It's like survival peaking out. So codependence is attachment. No. It is terror. It's terror that tells you, if I don't intervene, something bad will happen. Now, empaths, listen. Highly sensitives, listen. Disorganized attachment, folks, listen. Children of alcoholics, listen to this. Because this is where it starts. And you're probably seeing it in the other parent. It is terror that says, I'm the one responsible for stabilizing this emotional field. Me, I'm responsible because I can see that no one else is doing this. And I want you to think of little kids. I certainly was that person. And this is what we call the parentified child. It is the terror that says, if I let go, the tower falls, my family falls, everything is destroyed. And you're rewarded for this. You're rewarded for codependence because you're the one in the middle of the room saving it all. You are the first responder. The reason why this can feel so horrible, because it activates the mind and the body and the emotions. All of it activate. Your mind starts building the case of what you're seeing. Your body, right? It braces for impact. You're putting on your seatbelt and your helmet. Energetically, you also start to ruminate. You start to obsess because you're defending that what you know inside yourself is true and it's real. And get this, when the person, this is so hard for me, is gaslighting themselves, when they're minimizing their own reality or their own behavior, like let's say with addictions, like look at me, I still wake up at 6 a.m. Even if I drink every night, I still go to work, all of that stuff. I can have a sober February. When someone is contorting their own knowing, the trigger actually multiplies. It's even scarier. And again, this could be a good-hearted person. For sure it's the narcissist. For sure it's the dismissive avoidant. For sure it's the bully. Yes, that's classic. But sometimes it's someone who's kind-hearted, who does not want to confront their own behavior. their own cognitive dissonance. But when you're the one on the outside, or when you're a child, or when you're the part, you're not just trying to protect the person. You're not just trying to protect yourself. You are trying to protect truth, because truth and honesty provides safety. This is why the migraine came on. Can you feel all of that work? All of that contraction? Migraines are about contraction and feeling out of control. So you contract, you literally brace to have control again. This is why I felt paralyzed, but also like spastically wanting to move into action, to speak my truth. And you get desperate. I get desperate to make sense. Now let's talk about the childhood origin. Let's talk about where this comes from. Triggers have roots, deep roots. And that's why they're important, because we want to go in there and start pulling up those roots. When this trigger hit me, I felt like my little girl self. I could feel her. I could see her getting activated and panicky. I felt that part of me that ran between my parents emotionally had to be the adult in the room, had to support one of my parents through their distress that was inflicted by another parent. That whole thing. Me, I was trying to stabilize. Something that had nothing to do with it. So I became that child who listened for tone shifts, who watched body language, who felt so good and valued and seen to be the best friend to these adults. Even though my little psyche, I had no idea what was going on. I just had to grow up really fast. I was the one tracking the tension, moving in to solve, to soothe. I tried to prevent all the explosions. I got in the way. And inside myself, the little girl, I call it like the Russian dolls. There's like the little one, and then there's the big one who's public facing, who looks mature and put together and competent, right? The little one, the one that gets triggered, super lonely, not knowing, ruminating over what all of this meant, and feeling this constant instability at home. Certainly not feeling safe or protected. So that is what forms underneath codependence. Codependence is a coping mechanism, probably like addiction is a coping mechanism. It's trying to control or manage all this other stuff underneath, because that little girl learned a horrific belief. If you don't do something, everything will follow. And that becomes a program. It becomes a belief schema. It becomes an entire neural net. It becomes a relational dynamic. It becomes a way of being. It becomes your career. Becomes the whole thing. You've put on the codependent suit. And where does it start? It starts with parentification, making that little child into someone much bigger to serve the adults. It's a moral responsibility that's placed on the child. What are other words? A stabilizer, a first responder, a translator, a counselor, a protector. You're unprotected, but you're the one protecting. A little emotional accountant who's trying to just not let anything go emotionally bankrupt. You're the builder. You're trying to keep it all sustained. So what do you learn? These are some formulas you learn: that safety equals intervention, that love equals vigilance. I teach this a lot, these formulas, like love equals loss, love equals abandonment. This is all the little formulas that we start to introject. Your body learns that if you rest, people suffer. You can't rest. There's no relaxing in these states. And other people love it. They're like, yep, my little helper, my rock star. So this is why the trigger is not about adulthood. This story is about a childhood where a little one carried a very, very big job. So the earlier these patterns or this programming is installed, volume 1, we talked about it last week, they repeat on automatic later. Volume 2, explosions, relational dynamics. So why? Because the mind tracks patterns, right? The body knows Someone's gaslighting themselves, you're like, whoa. Now, the good news is that it develops an incredibly heightened intuition. So heightened. You know how to read someone lying to themselves or lying to you like this. And you have evidence, a library of where you saw it and you knew. The nervous system recognizes what it knows, what is familiar. In my case, I've been drawn in my earlier life to unsafe dynamics because I knew them. Not only did I know them, I was the project manager. I knew how to manage all that stuff. I stayed in relationships where they weren't mutual. Lots of gaslighting, especially people to themselves, addiction. Because, yeah, I knew that love came with that level of risk, that level of constant confusion and recalibrating all the time. I knew that. So I replayed it. I became the protector, the translator, the one who was calling out stuff, the one holding the emotional field all the time, who's reading between the lines, the one who's trying to prevent things before they happen because I can see them, the one who's trying to make reality, make it make sense. Now, again, the wound is the gift. It has given me an incredible clairvoyance, clairsentience, claircognizance, for sure, and clairaudience. I can listen with my whole body when I'm not triggered. Now, I can do all of that even when I'm triggered. The thing is, it hijacks me with a trauma activation, the gaslighting trauma activation. So here's the insight that dismantles it. The trigger today in my adult life isn't about them. It's just my body remembering who it had to be. And this is where I can start pivoting. This is where my adult self says, someone in my group said it the other day, there's a parent in the room and that parent is me. There's an adult in the room and that adult is me. And that adult can sit still, get quiet, know that she's triggered and start talking, soothing the child. The program turns off and the adult can choose not to obey it. Isn't it beautiful when we start to become the observer of our whole internal system? This is where volume 3 comes in, the beautiful wise sage adult. From my volume 3, from my heaven on earth space can come in and actually soothe volume 1, little girl, volume 2, wounded person, all of it starts to merge. Integrate. Remember, we talked about integration. So now we start moving into the healing sequence. So I'm going to tell you what I did for myself, what I work with my clients, and what I turn to every time I know I need to get back in front of the steering wheel. So this is where it becomes portable and practical. This is where we touch earth in heaven on earth. It's embodied and it's real. So let's get ready for it. Pull out your PhD on Me journal because we're going to talk about the healing sequence. The first step is awareness, observer on. I'm triggered. My body is hijacked. Whether I am right or wrong does not matter. Whether I can see the evidence or not does not matter. I need to put myself back into a calibrated and regulated state because you could feel it. You could feel the rev, the electricity, the hum of a trauma activation. You could feel it. Observer on. Number 2, separate. Separate to go find stillness and silence. And it's hard because you're so activated. But that's the step where it starts to let you know, wait, there's an adult in the room and the adult in the room is me. Now, you might have to do a walking meditation. You might have to sit up, something, fine. But separate yourself. It's foundational because the idea here is if I move into action, it's not into action that is a trigger intervention. It is actually moving into action to regulate myself, where I can touch my wisdom. But in order to touch my wisdom, I've got to be in my body, come back to my body, silence, stillness, separated. So this also creates a line between perception and responsibility, right? When we do this step, what you're saying is, I am responsible, but I'm responsible for myself first. I don't have to move into the impulse of being over responsible over there. So your nervous system is going to tell you that awareness requires action, and your healing, what it does is it retrains you to say, yes, it requires action, but it requires action towards me first, not codependently out there. Now, listen to me well. Even if you went ahead and did your codependent thing, I started to, and then I had to pull back. And it looks a little wacky to pull back. And you might tell people, hey, I'm getting very codependent. I'm going to pull back. I can say to myself slowly, I can see this. I trust myself. So you're validating what you see, even if no one else sees it. I can release responsibility for out. It's a high place. And maybe you just start with, I can see it. It is real. I like to say, and I do not need to move into action. That might be softer than, I'm not responsible for the outcomes. Because that can move you back into panic a little bit. But if you can say that and you feel it, say it. So number 3, work somatically. Your body's been hijacked by a full entire program. So hand on the chest, hand on the belly, long exhales. Identify where you feel the desperation. In my case, I was feeling like a sort of heartbreak, like the heartbreak felt so intense. And in my case, I did a whole like walking down memory's lane. And memory lane was my desperate desire to save my family. I wanted a safe family desperately. And so in adulthood, when there's any signs, I just go into a codependent, a coping mechanism to save my family. And I tracked it all the way back. My little tiny self felt like she had to save the family. So where did I feel it? I felt it in my heart. My heart felt broken. I just started to say yes to it. Dynamic meditation. I did the say yes meditation, yes and yes and yes to the heartache with breaths. Right? The inhale and the yes hails. Yes. Allowing it to come and leave my body. And then I could name what was happening. Whoa, this is old. And that phrase matters because you're just reminding your central nervous system that this is a very repeated, very old pattern that belongs to volume 1. It belongs to the earlier chapters of your life. You can even say, okay, my body remembers, but my adult self is here now. Safety is here now. I'm keeping myself safe. I don't have to keep everyone outside of me safe. Number 4, the grief pivot. When the mind starts tracking this, when it starts going down memory lane and it starts identifying what went wrong, what was unfair, the contradictions that existed in your life, in your childhood, when I can do that, I can actually just start pivoting into a deeper feeling, which is grief. Grief. Because when the vigilance begins to dissipate after I've said yes and yes and yes to my body being so jacked up, then I can start softening into my grief, into my heartbreak, that I didn't feel safe, that you didn't feel safe, that you felt unprotected, that people didn't protect you, that you were the one stabilizing. When you really wanted, you really craved and needed others, the adults in the room, to give you safety and stability. And this is when you can mourn that it hurts, mourn that you want that as an adult. You want just a stable, safe, protective family, without gaslighting, where things are spoken, even if they're hard to hear. But at least you can trust that wherever you walk, you're walking in truth. And so are the people around you. They're just walking in truth. You can trust that they're walking in truth. Number 5, pull out your journal. Pull out your journal. And this one is one of the most healing ones because you start to get it out of your system. You don't have to debate. You don't have to convince, defend, or explain. And these are some questions you can ask, okay? So write these down. What hurts to watch is. What I wish I didn't have to accept is. What I'm afraid will happen is. Now, this is going to bring up some feelings, but it unties the knot that's inside of you that actually gets rigidified into codependent. And I would even add, I like to do this. Oh, what I wish would happen is what I'm craving to feel is. That's when I could identify the craving for family safe, for family truth-telling, for family reciprocal kindness and accountability. Because nothing dissipates gaslighting more than these words. Oh, my bad. Yeah, that was my stuff. How about this one? Oh yeah, I can see why that would bother you. Oh yeah, I can see why that was triggering. Oh, you're right. I am holding a double standard. These are beautiful words that literally reverse all gaslighting. That insidious gas, like carbon monoxide, that is filling these family spaces and killing safety bit by bit. So while you're journaling, the truth is pouring out without you having to convince anybody. You're not building a case. The page is holding all of it for you, and the body feels like it has a place to go. The inner child can come up, can touch the adult. Terror can come up to be soothed by your own self, and you as the adult in the room can contain your little child. Number 6. Replace your thoughts. This is where cognitive behavioral therapy comes in. This is why I create cloudisms. Go to my YouTube channel. All my cloudisms are phrases that stick, that help you emotionally regulate, mentally reframe, and you're spiritually connected with the now moment, which is right now, not the trigger from the past. Cloudisms are my own personal slangish way of creating CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. So thoughts like this, their choices are not my job. I love this one because it neutralizes all thoughts. All thoughts. You don't have to even pick a thought. This is such a beautiful one. I use it all the time. Could this be something other than what I'm thinking? Could it be something other than what I'm thinking? Neutralize. So these are thoughts that you can say. You can say something like, stay here now. Stay here. Like stay inside your body. Don't go out, solve, fix, save. Stay here. And that impulse, that urge to move into action for others, stay here now. I am safe. When you're starting to ruminate or have those conversations, those monologues, this isn't my job. Could it be something other than what I'm thinking? Stay right here. And if you feel a little quieter, a little gentler, a little softer, you can add. This is a second tier reach. Once you're a little more stabilized, you can say their choices belong to their lesson, their timing, their path. It's going into party of two-niverse, and that's a cloudism, right? I'm not a party of one saving all of this. I'm part of a party of two-niverse. The quantum field, God, let go and let God, they say in 12-step programs, right? I can let this go. This isn't mine. I'm not the only person fixing this. It's beautiful. And I love one of Louise Hay's statements, affirmations. She has amazing ones, amazing ones. Look her up, Louise Hay. I know that everything is working out for my highest good. Everything is working out for my highest good. Everything. All your wounds, all the turmoil, everything is working for the good. And that's a belief system. It is certainly my belief system. Everything is ultimately working for the good. So number 7, this is the final step, and it's pretty clarifying. It's important. This was something that just came up, like, because the more you dig, right, you go into the fault lines. It's like you're going into like a mine, and you're sifting through your memories, through your wounds, through the icky, the gooey, the intense, and you're breathing and you're saying yes, right? It leads to the gold mines. Thank you, triggers, because you led me to the fault lines that lead to the gold mines. And you know the piece of gold that was there that just opened up, right? To find the pearl in the middle. I cannot and will not be with people that do not prioritize my safety. And that little pearl, that little gold, piece of gold, carries decades of wisdom. Boy, it distills the whole lesson of the trigger, and it becomes a compass. And part of safety is people who are accountable, people who will take the other side of the equation with you, who will say, this is what I did to contribute to this, and you say, this is what I did, where there's two parties discussing their own accountability, because that's safe. People who can have hard conversations because they are committed to truth, because truth, right, provides safety. This is the stuff of good relations. So here's where clinical and spiritual meet. Heaven on, because it's integration. All of this journey that I just explained to you is integration. Safety is psychological, it's energetic, it's spiritual, it's emotional, it's physical. And for the soul to flourish, for the human being to just be their highest, best self, it has to experience the root chakra, their own foundation, as safe. I keep talking about it. It's in the last podcast. If you haven't visited that episode, go ahead. All of my episodes have this. When a child feels securely attached, they can explore, they can adventure, they can risk. So it might take some vetting for friendships, for your chosen family. It might take some vetting. But gaslighting or self-gaslighting is a non-negotiable. At least that was my piece of gold. Ask yourself, after you do all of this, what are your pieces of gold? What does your wisdom, what does it push up to the surface about what you need in order to have a foundation of safety, stability, belonging? Woo! I'm telling you, anyone who says like healing is soft or it's fluffy, oh no, my friends, oh no, my loves, this stuff is fierce. It gets easier. You move to recovery much quicker, and you know what tools to use. And I'm hoping that on this podcast, you're getting all of that. I'm handing it over. What's that movie? Pay It Forward? Yeah, paying it forward. So we can't close out this podcast without talking about the all is in the small and the small is in the all. And this is a very, very, very precise moment. I'm telling you, January's been packed. So let's bring it home to the collective, because the all is in the small and the small is in the all. These times will amplify your triggers. triggers like this will get amplified. So collective instability activates personal histories. And this is the sole purpose of this podcast when I started. Gaslighting on larger scales awakens early confusion. The whole populace starts to swirl in confusion. What's going on here? In the confusion of double standards. In the confusion of seeing folks self-gaslighting and projecting it out, power imbalances. And so the vibe is danger, danger, danger. Something feels unsafe when the gaslighting trauma activated. And we all feel, right, this terror and this urge, this impulse of needing to intervene, explain, rescue, show the case, show the evidence, to stabilize, to prove beyond the gaslight. So this is the distinction, and the distinction matters, and the distinction is discernment and alignment. If we're spastically moving into action, we might be in reactive mode. Saving spastic. The same steps make sense. Get calm, get still, calm the trigger so that the action comes out of wisdom. And it is smart and it is strategic. And of course, in the silence and stillness, you say, I know what I know. I see what I see. Because remember, someone self-gaslighting or gaslighting in general, it creates migraines, it creates confusions, creates terror. It hijacks the body. We become sort of noodles, screaming, raging noodles. Who's to blame us? Because we are trauma triggered, trauma activated. This stuff will activate all sorts of trauma. And it keeps us like that little child, like the little me I described, like running, desperately running to save, to push the towers up. So what the times are calling for is sovereign action. And sovereignty means that you're inside of your body, you have a calm central nervous system, you're internally calibrated so that your behavior is regulated. So by the time you're moving into action, you know exactly what's going on with full alignment. You are sitting in your throne body. And then safety and rest can come because responsibility comes back to the rightful. Then there's more room for love and for helping each other. We're not requiring vigilance when there's gaslighting in our midst. It's like carbon monoxide. And remember, that's when the magic of possibility of what we can do, not only as individuals, but as a people. Heaven on earth does not bypass. All it means is come back to center, touch the earth, get grounded, come back to yourself, and then move into wise action. We're seeing glimmers of that happening everywhere. As always, thank you for sitting with me in this podcast. I hope that it's touching someone out there. And if it is, can you subscribe, share, comment, suggest? Let's do this journey together. Healing is activism. And I would say beyond healing, right? Becoming whole, becoming your whole self. I'll see you in the next Heaven on Earth.